Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear. Spyderco Delica. I love kind of randomly throwing out stats that I don't actually know about. Probably top 5 for sure. Compact EDC folding knives of all time, if not higher than that. But I'm trying to think, are there any other really big competitors for the most popular compact, we'll say sub, what is this, 3-inch blade, maybe 2.5-inch folding knife of all times? I don't have my friggin' ruler measuring tape with me either. This is just gonna be an overview, not an unboxing or a review with all the proper specs and stuff. So keep an eye out in the future. Once I use this knife a little bit more and get some feel for it, I'll do my full review and give you the full specs, details, all that stuff. For now, give you my initial thoughts on it, just the initial handling, looking at it. I've had this now for, I guess, about a couple months, because I did do this trade for this knife back in probably, I want to say February maybe, and I only got these shipped to me, or I brought these back rather, from home on my last trip probably about a month ago. So I've handled these, more so the grip, now for about, I'd say the better part of 4 to 5 weeks. Closer to 6, 7, I guess. Yeah, time's flying right now. But I traded these two for my Osborne 940-2. You can check out the video I did on that. If it's not popping up on the side panel, just feel free to check it out on the Hog channel from about a month ago, probably March, April. No, what are we right now? I guess around April, the video would have came out. And I talk a little bit about these two knives, but just a little bit more centered on the Delica right now. These are, by the way, two knives that I've wanted to try for a long time. Two classic models, the Benchmade Griptilian and the Spyderco Delica. I've had a few Benchmades, the 940-2, the Super Freak now from Benchmade, which is one of my favorite freaking knives. That axis lock works phenomenal. And then Spyderco's, I think I've got all my Spyderco's here. Yes, I do. Just the Manix 2 in S30V, the Paramilitary 2 in S30V, the Specific Salt 2 in LC200N, which is, in my opinion, better than S30V because it's way more stainless, seems to have even better edge retention than the stats say, and it seems to be pretty close to S30V. And then we've got the Delica here, which is in VG10, a little more of an old school stainless steel, very standard across the board for a lot of companies up until the last probably 10 years or so that people have been super into S30V. But yeah, so there's the Spyderco Collection, slightly expanded. Am I forgetting one? No, that's it. So the Delica, if you've noticed here, is a smaller version of what you're looking at. And technically it wasn't based off of the Pacific Salt 2, it was based off of the Endura, which I can bring a picture of the Endura up to you right now, but it's essentially the same exact knife, the same exact model. It's just, I think the main differences are if not the only differences, are the fact that this is completely rust-proof and using LC200N. The previous Pacific Salt versions, which I think are the black and yellow handle-scaled ones, those are the H1 steel, which has been well known to be completely 100% rust-proof at the compromise of being soft as butter. So basically, if you cut a zip tie with H1, you're probably going to have to sharpen your knife immediately after. Maybe not quite that bad, but apparently it's pretty close to that. So the LC200N was a huge upgrade, great knife steel, but that essentially, this is an Endura that can do things underwater. And I'll just confirm and check a picture there afterwards, make sure I'm not terribly off on that, but I don't think there's any major difference. Got this, a modified sheep's foot type of a blade, very nice. I think, yeah, essentially the same, if not a little bit more of a spear point, or do they call that, is that the Spyderco clip point? Maybe, no, I'd say probably not. So we probably got a full flat grind with, yeah, a little modified Warncliffe, or modified sheep's foot rather, on the end of this. Pretty nice blade design, one of the better ones out there, if you ask me, as far as practicality, EDC stuff, that also allows you to do some self-defense stuff if you ever had to, because I know there's trainers for the Delica and the Endura, I believe, and definitely for the Yojimbo 2 from Spyderco. And typically when a company puts out trainers for certain knives, like the Delica, it's because not only is it a very popular knife, it's one that people carry a lot that actually does end up with some self-defense, I guess in some self-defense situations. Is this the best knife for self-defense? No, but it's small enough that people are gonna carry it, and it's better to have something that you're gonna carry than to not be carrying something because it's too large, bulky, whatever. So there is a lot of different reasons why you might carry this, and no matter what the reason is, it's probably going to double or triple up for everything else you're going to do, because there's not a whole lot short of like big bushcraft tasks. Like I'm not going to want a baton with most Spydercos, but definitely not. Obviously folding knives, you shouldn't baton with them, just in case you're wondering. But I'm not going to baton with this. I'm probably not going to take this out on big bushcraft adventures, but you could do it. And for a smaller knife, I really like the way this feels in my hand, and compared to, I don't have it with me, I've only brought a handful of my knives, but the Rat Model 2, too small. Can't quite get a good grip on it, don't like the feel of it. The M16, the M16, no, is it M14? Whatever the smaller of the M16 line is, I think it's the M14s. M14 03B, no, 0 KSF. I can't keep track of all of the CRKT model numbers, but you get the idea. What I'm getting at is that the Delica, compared to the other small knives that I've handled, with the exception of the 940-2, which I always really did enjoy in my hand, this feels really good. And that's kind of why I was willing to make this trade. When the East Coast Kid Tack kind of put the offer out, he gave me the option to trade my 940-2, which is fairly new, for 2 out of the 3 knives he offered, which was his 940, the aluminum original version with the green scales. And I was interested, but I kind of wanted to try these 2 knives out. And this is the VG10 and 154CM versions of these knives. But some people might be like, dude, you're nuts. Why would you ever want to trade for inferior blade steels like that? But they're steels I haven't tried. A lot of folks are really into 154CM or CM 154 or CPM 154, whatever the other version is. And VG10 is such a classic steel that I've never owned, never tried, never sharpened. So it gives me an opportunity to work with 2 steels that I really haven't got to use yet, that people tend to enjoy quite a bit. Now the Delica, will I ever carry it as a main EDC? Probably not. Even around base here, I've been carrying it just in my PT shorts or sweatpants when I'm off duty, and I've only carried it for a little while, and I had to really take it out. I could probably get used to it if I kept it in there for a couple days. I'm sure I will force myself to carry it before I do a full review on it, but it's too small for me. It's too small, absolutely. Like the Manix 2 is pretty much spot on for like my overall preferences, but the Paramilitary 2 is pretty much about as small and light of a knife as I felt comfortable carrying ever. And this even took me a while. That's basically why I put my last video out about the PM2. It wasn't even an overview or a full review. It was just the PM2 was growing on me. And at first it was just too light, too fragile feeling, but it's coming around. But the Delica, in size comparison, maybe we'll just finish this off with a few size comparisons. It's just not even in the same range as my other knives for size and capability. That little short blade does have its limitations. That being said, we do love the Azula 2 on this channel, and as you can see, probably about the same size. Larger handle scale actually, or larger handle, more hand room on the Delica, funny enough, although not by much, because that Azula 2 handle is perfect. Price point, pretty reasonable, around like I think $100 US, 100, 120, 130 Canadian, within that ballpark anyway. So very affordable knife compared to a lot of different Spydercos and stuff, but it is tiny, and it is, I think, made with some different steels. No, what am I saying? There's definitely a lot of different steel options out there. VG10 may still be the original stock option for the cheaper ones, but I know you can get it in like, I think, K390 and a bunch of random new super steels and stuff. And there's all the different, I'm blanking, what do they call those? Sprint runs of the limited edition ones that you can find out there, as well as fancy titanium Damascus. There's options if you don't like the VG10 or if you don't like the blue. I actually have never had one of these like blue handle scaled knives in my life. I think my Kershaw Blur is my only blue knife. So now we got a little bit of that Ben blue going on. So add some color diversity into the hog knife scheme, although not a whole lot. It was last week's hog poll was about like color scheme preferences, or not last week's, but several weeks ago at the time of filming this last week's. But the color preferences for myself and a lot of people are earth tones. That's a knife down. Good thing we buy rugged gear around here, and there's the Topspell Spy Elite off the ground. But yeah, a lot of earth tones, a lot of black on black. But there's a good few size comparisons for you. The Delica compared to the Azula 2, probably the most accurate and close that I've got here. And then as soon as we get into almost any of my other knives, we're talking about, significant size difference. And again, the Endura which is essentially the same as the Pacific Salt 2, is the big daddy version of the Delica. They're more or less the same model knife, just scaled differently, like the Model 1, Model 2, or like the Paramilitary 2 and Para 3, which eventually I'll probably get a Para 3, but it's kind of expensive for a knife that's going to end up being the same thing, I believe, as the Delica, which is a little too small for my liking, and I'll probably never carry it. Now, there's just certain knives that if you're doing this, you kind of feel like you need to handle, and like the Paramilitary 2 obviously was one of those, the Delica was one of those. I'm probably going to have to get my hands on a Para 3 at some point. But here we are for now, added to the Spyderco collection. Pretty happy with the trade. Overall, I'm extremely happy with the trade, because the 940-2 wasn't a knife I used much. I carried it as backup, and getting the Delica as part of that trade with the Griptilian, the Delica replaces that as a backup knife that I can carry pretty much anywhere as in a backup pocket or even in a fifth pocket, just so I have an extra folder on me depending on where I am or what I'm doing. Sometimes, most of the time actually, I'm just that kind of a loser when it comes to knives, and I prefer to have an extra folder and an extra fixed blade on me because I can, and it's kind of fun to see how many knives you can carry on you without people really knowing. Not that I'm concealing them, but just trying to carry them in a practical, low profile fashion, if that makes sense. But that's about it for this one. Say, G10 handle scale, or sorry, FRN or GRN handle scales, backlock. It's a Delica. I think there's plenty of different videos out there. Obviously, this is a used one, quite worn down. That's perfectly okay. East Coast Kid Tack, I very much like the character of the knives that you've traded me, and I'm not much of one to keep my knives pretty and shiny, as you know, so I'm not too concerned about that. So thanks again for that trade. Again, there's a whole video on that, and in the coming months/years, I will definitely get some time in with this knife. When I have some freedom to do some more field testing, I'll get out and beat it up a little bit and see how I like the feel of it, and look for any hot spots and stuff during some more long-term use. For now, feel free to check out the other videos for all of these knives, except for the grip, which I'm going to film right after this. And yeah, I guess that's all we're talking about for this one. So thank you for your time and attention and your viewership. Click the like button if you haven't, if you do not mind, and I'll see you on the next one. This is the Hard On Gear channel signing off.